Hello there, friend. I hope all is well. Recently, I've been watching a couple of commentary style videos, such as Moist Critical, Nakey Jakey, Mad Season Show, and a few others as well. And it's recently inspired me to make a series of similar fashion where I find a topic that interests me and provide my thoughts. And I figured what better way to start this series than with the game that I love and will actually produce heavy blood flow near my pelvic region. And that game is Now, Dark Souls is mostly known to the outside audience as a really hard game that makes you rage quit and where only the best of the best quote unquote gamers are able to beat it. Now, I partially agree with this sentiment. First and foremost, I hate the term gamer, it just sounds so cringy. And second, I think this game can be pretty challenging, especially during somebody's first playthrough, and that's mostly due to the inexperience that they have with these sorts of games and them trying to figure out the mechanics and cameras. And while I do believe that the difficulty of the Souls games tends to be its most appealing factor to someone who has never played the games before, fun fact, that's actually how I started to play the games as well, it is only one of the factors that makes this franchise so beloved amongst its loyal fan base. Let me briefly take you back to the summer of 2013, or it might have been 2012 actually, back to a simpler time when I had energy and a will to live. I was around 17 or 16 years old with no moves and no hoes, and I was just tired of playing FIFA all day long. So I remember going up to my brother and being just like, man, I want to play a really hard game, and I don't know if there's any out there right now. And I remember my brother being like, have you heard of this game called Dark Souls? And I was like, no, what is that? And my brother, who is usually more researched when it comes to like new video games and things like that, he told me it's apparently this really hard game that's pretty good. And I was just thinking to myself, So I went out, bought the game, just based off the fact that people were saying it was a really difficult game. And man, that was probably one of my best decisions that I've ever made regarding video games. So anyways, I go back home, I pop the disc into my 360, and I'm just excited because it's a new game and I wanted to play this really challenging game, and apparently that's what I was getting myself into. And as soon as you start the game, you're greeted by its title screen. Now, if your first thought to the main menu was, wow, what a soothing and relaxing theme, are people sure that this is the rage-inducing, controller-breaking, slap-your-dick type of game that I've been hearing about? And you're damn right it is, because this game's gonna prove you both right and wrong all at the same time. Anyways, after you move on from the main menu, you move into the character creation screen, and where if you have a good sense of imagination, you'll probably spend like a good amount of time creating your ideal character with a dope-ass name, maybe like Soul Snatching, Great Cello, or Lou Kid, Bane of Gods. Or you can be like me, who has zero imagination, used the default character with a slightly darker skin tone, standard night class, and named him Trouser Sword. Yeah. So staying on the topic of the character creation screen, there's also a variety of classes that you can pick from. Each class specializes in different attributes at the start of the game, and these 9 attributes are comprised of Vitality to increase your health, Attunement to increase your spell slots, Endurance to increase your stamina and weight capacity, your Strength to power up large weapons like two-handed swords and maces, Dexterity to power up quick weapons like daggers and katanas, Resistance to increase your defenses like physical defense, fire resistance, stuff like that, Intelligence to power up your sorceries, Faith to power up your miracles. And your playstyle will vary depending on which attributes you prefer to level up. So say you want to play as a paladin, you can level up your faith, strength, and vitality. Or you can play as an agile thief if you level up your dexterity, endurance, and resistance. You can play as a pyromancer, sorcerer if you increase your attunement, intelligence, and resistance. Basically, my point is that you can play this game however you want. There's different weapons, swords and shields, two-handed swords, axes, maces, spears, bows, so on and so forth. The customization and playstyles differ for everybody, and that just adds to the uniqueness of the game, and it creates a more personal attachment with your character. Anyways, now that you have your character ready, you're finally ready to traverse into the beautiful, unforgiving world of Dark Souls. So the game starts you out with an opening cinematic with a very broad background regarding some characters that you'll encounter later on in the game and the world that Dark Souls takes place in. And to briefly explain it, it's basically you are the chosen undead and you're tasked with the mission to rekindle the first flame in order to keep the current world alive. And just think of the first flame sort of like the sun. The story has many more layers to it, but I just don't want to get too in depth with it because part of the fun is uncovering the story for yourself and interpreting it in your way. The opening cinematic is then followed up by a brief in-game cinematic where your character, the chosen undead, is introduced inside of a prison cell. You're given the key to the cell by a mysterious man, and finally you start to play the game. Now, I don't want to talk about the sequence of the entire game because I don't want to spoil anything for a first-time player, but I do want to briefly go over the beginning of the game, basically the prologue or tutorial, as the experiences in this level will pretty much apply to the rest of the game. So you start to move around, killing random enemies, and you start to pretty much get a decent hang of the controls, because the gameplay itself is pretty smooth with not an overwhelming amount of mechanics or controls. You pretty much have your movement, your strong swings, your normal swings, parry, block, sprinting, dash and dodge, item use, and target lock. So the controls are actually pretty easy to comprehend. Most of the gameplay just kind of comes from your understanding of the mechanics and your ability to analyze your opponent's attacks and sequences and come up with strategies to counter them. And you quickly run into a bonfire. Now this is a player's save / checkpoint where you can restore your healing items, upgrade attribute points, fast travel to other bonfires that you've encountered, and relieve yourself of any status ailments that you have. Bonfires also reset trash NPCs or mobs, if you like to call them that. So any mobs that you've cleared or killed, you will have to re-kill them again if you haven't gotten to the next bonfire. So always keep caution of when to use your bonfires, only when it's absolutely necessary or right after you kill the boss. And just a quick little side note, I feel like this is where the main menu theme captures the game so perfectly. Because after battling the cruel and tough enemies or bosses the game has to offer, when you have no more Estus Flask left to heal and your health bar is so low you can barely even see it, you're not even sure how you're still alive, you finally reach a bonfire where you, the player, can take a rest, heal up, and find a moment's peace from the atrocities around you. But right after the first bonfire that you find, you have to open these two giant doors and you're encountered by the Asylum Demon. Ooh. And this thing pretty much looks like every Latina woman right after high school that peaked in high school. And basically, he's just fat as hell. Now, I'm not gonna spoil, but this can either be one of the easier bosses that you encounter in the game or one of the toughest ones. It kind of just depends on your awareness. But one thing for sure is that it's definitely one of the most memorable first bosses that you'll encounter in most games, mostly because you'll think back to yourself, man, they really made me fight a boss 5 seconds into the game? And honestly, I think that all the bosses in this game are actually pretty memorable, for better or for worse. Ornstein and Smo you'll always remember as the duo that ran the ultimate train on you because they're just so difficult in your first playthrough of the game. Sif the Grey Wolf is remembered due to his amazing background and lore, Pinwheel due to how ridiculously easy he is to fight, or the Capra Demon just because of how cheesy of a fight that is. I can name many more, but for the sake of not making this video too long, I'll leave it at that. My point is that the bosses of Dark Souls are instrumental to the experience as each of them brings their own unique memories, whether it be for its lore or gameplay. Now this video is quite lengthy, so let's take a quick break and introduce our sponsor. What the hell? What? What do you mean? What? Are you serious? What the f***? Okay, so apparently we actually don't have a sponsor. Apparently nobody really knows who we are yet, so we've had no offers. I don't know why I thought we did. But instead, enjoy your bathroom break with some relaxing retro video game music. Okay, great. Now that you've gone to the bathroom and taken a little break, let's head back to the video. Finally, after getting past the first boss, you'll encounter the Knight Oscar of Astora. He's the one that released you from your cell earlier. And I want you to take a quick look at the interaction between the player and Oscar.
Oh, you. You're no hollow. Thank goodness. I'm done for, I'm afraid. I'll die soon, then lose my sanity. I wish to ask something of you. You and I, we're both undead. Hear me out, will you?
Pause right there. Now there's a few things that I want to point out from this interaction. The first being his mentioning of you not going hollow. So in the game's story, a hollow is an undead that has lost his sense of humanity and has gone insane and basically just tries to kill anyone around him. And the way that you go hollow is if you lose your sense of purpose. Once you lose your purpose, the process of hollowing begins. Sort of think of it like being depressed because you don't know what you want from your life. But instead of getting in your feelings, you go flipping bonkers. Okay, now back to Oscar. Damn, where's this damn... Oh, here it is.
Regrettably, I have failed in my mission, but perhaps you can keep the torch lit. There is an old saying in my family, thou who art undead art chosen, and thine exodus from the undead asylum maketh pilgrimage to the land of ancient lords. When thou ringest the bell of awakening, the fate of the undead thou shalt know.
The second point that I wanted to bring up are the sounds heard throughout this entire interaction. You'll quickly notice that there is no music in the background, and the only thing that you hear is a nice voice echoing throughout the asylum, your environment, and your own thoughts. And this holds true for pretty much its entirety, as music only plays throughout 4 areas of the game and during boss battles. Throughout most of the game, the only noises that you'll hear are your own footsteps, clanking armor, sword swings, spell casts, and the enemies around you. Which I think is one of the key features of the game's directing, as there's a beauty in only hearing your environment. There's no outside voice or music guiding you how you should feel about the game or the world around you, and it instead allows the player to create their own unique thoughts and opinions that reflect them as an individual.
Well, now you know, and I can die with hope in my heart. Oh, one more thing. Here, take this. An Estus Flask, an undead favorite. Oh, and this. Now I must bid farewell. I would hate to harm you after death. So go now, and thank you.
The third point is that as his last dying act, Oscar the Knight gives the player an item known as an Estus Flask. These are your healing potions throughout the entirety of the game. Now in most games, a healing potion is pretty much just that, a healing potion, with the sole purpose of restoring your health for gameplay purposes. And there's nothing wrong with that, obviously, and I'm pretty sure 99.9% of people have no issues with that as long as the mechanics work properly. However, the Estus Flask itself has its own lore. It is fire in the form of liquid from the bonfires that are linked to the firekeepers of the world. You upgrade the Estus Flask by obtaining Firekeeper souls and giving them to your Firekeeper to strengthen their connection with the bonfires and thus powering up your Estus Flask. And some might think of this as a minor detail, but details like this add to the world building in the game. Mechanics within the game are more than just mechanics, but they're a part of the story itself. Minor details are what makes shows, movies, and video games feel like something beyond our screens by connecting itself within its many strings and making the world feel that much more immersive and alive. The last point that I want to bring up stems from what I just mentioned regarding item descriptions and dialogue. Dark Souls storytelling is unique to most games as it doesn't outright describe to you the things that are going on within the world as you progress, and honestly you probably won't even know why you're doing the things that you are doing throughout your first playthroughs of the game.
Search found. I don't know. You're on your own, kid.
There are no spectacular cutscenes used to push the storytelling, no back and forth between characters to create a scene. You just listen to different characters talk, and each time they each provide more insight on the things that you're doing and the world itself.
You and I, we're both undead. Hear me out, will you?
I really enjoy this sense of interpretive storytelling because it always feels like you know enough to create a conclusion about the story inside the game, but it always leaves you with a hint of unknown as well. And that's done on purpose, as the game wants you to fill these gaps with your own conclusions to allow the player to create the story that they want to create. I remember after I finished playing the game for the very first time, even with barely any knowledge of the lore itself, this was still one of the funnest games that I had played in a really long time. Just based off the gameplay and sense of accomplishment from defeating its challenges, but once I did my research, it no longer felt like I just played a video game. It sort of felt like I had journeyed throughout an entire world. In all honesty, I could continue to talk about Dark Souls for probably a couple more hours, just off of memory alone, but I don't want to make this video too long as I don't want to spoil the game for anyone that hasn't played it yet. There were many things that I left from each of the points that I covered, and points that I didn't cover as well, but that was to allow you to discover these sorts of things as you play. This video is not a review or a guide, but is meant solely for the purpose of trying to convince someone to play the game. So I'll give my parting words. From Software and Hidetaka Miyazaki have done an excellent job with the Souls franchise, as it never feels like they disappoint their fan base with these games. You can tell that the Souls games are projects made with a passion and love, and not just for dollars, which is sadly not common these days in the world of video game development. I know I mentioned at the start of the video that I made the topic of this video Dark Souls as a way to start out this genre of videos, but as I was writing my script, a few streamers that I support like Your Rage, Flacco Jordy, and Black Crosses started to play Demon Souls, or they may have actually finished the game by the time this video comes out. But seeing them play brought me joy because A, this was the first Souls game for a few of them. B, they all seemed to be enjoying the game, maybe with the exception of one. And C, the fact that they are bringing positive exposure to the game. I'm pretty sure that a majority of their viewers have not played a single Souls game before, and hopefully seeing their favorite streamers play one can get them to at least give one of the other Souls games a try. Elden Ring is the next game in the Souls franchise and is set to release around January 2022, and I'm finding myself to be pretty excited for it to arrive, and I hope that many newcomers will give this game a chance as well, so that this franchise can finally get the flowers that it deserves. If you do decide to play a Souls game, I recommend going in blind with no knowledge of the areas, bosses, or meta weapons, as the sense of overcoming challenges and discovery are one of the most rewarding parts about these games. Getting out of your comfort zone and playing a game like Dark Souls that you've never done before is a challenge in and of itself. And you will die, and you will be frustrated, and you will want to give up. But that's exactly what Miyazaki intended, as he wants to challenge your determination. He wants you to get back up after every fall, and most importantly, he wants you to be his game. So put down that 2K, put down that Fortnite, put down that FIFA, and put down that game that you're so familiar with, and start from nothing into the chosen undead. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching my video. This was a lot of hard work that I'm glad I put in, and I'm happy that you were able to enjoy it. If you are ever interested in looking up any of the lore or stories for any of the Souls games, head over to Vatividya's channel, as he is one of the best Souls narrators on YouTube. Lastly, if you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe for future videos like this. This was actually one of the funnest ones that I've done so far. But anyways, please, enjoy the rest of your week, live with no regrets, and until next time, my friend.